In the previous lecture, we created a function that will accept arguments from the terminal, the MAC address, and the interface from the terminal, and then assign it to variable options. That is when we invoke the getArgument function, and then both the interface and the MAC address value will be assigned to variable options. Now, in this lecture, we are going to create the function that will actually change the MAC address, okay, which is very important to our program, which is the main goal of our program, to change the MAC address. So we are going to implement this in the function that we are going to create in this lecture. All right, so I'm going to create this function. So let me come here and all right, so a comment, a function to change the MAC address, All right, then I can come here and write the def and then specify the function name. Okay, the function name is change MAC. Okay, so a function to change the MAC address. Okay, so I have this. So I have defined the function. Now we are going to see the function requires argument. Okay, so basically remember in while defining the in our previous lectures, we thought that to actually change the MAC address over the terminal, we run system commands sudo if config. First of all, we put the interface down, and then we change the MAC address. We specify the MAC address and the interface, and then we run another sudo if config off, and then we reactivate the interface. So basically, we are going to run same commands in this particular function to actually change the MAC address of the particular interface that we want to change its MAC address. Okay, and to create a script that actually run system commands, because sudo if config is a system command, we are going to import a module called subprocess. So I'll come over here and then write import subprocess, and then I can add a comment to enable us run system commands, to enable us run system commands. All right, so I'm done with this, and just come down and then start. And now I can call any function from this particular module, and to help me achieve my goal. Okay, so the first function that I'm going to call, I'm going to invoke a function call, which is from this module subprocess. And this function subprocess.call requires that we pass the constituent of the command as elements of a list. So I'm going to break down the commands as element of a list. So sudo, which is the first command, followed by a comma separator, and then I'm going to if config, then put a comma. Now if config, then interface. Okay, so I'm going to specify the interface. Remember, it's interface. Sudo if config interface, and then down. Okay, so and then I'll put it down. So but the interface, we are going to specify the interface as a parameter here. So that means that any line of code that invoke this particular change mark will have to pass interface as argument. So basically, this command subprocess.call will now put the interface, the particular interface that we have passed as argument, it will put it down. Okay, so now we run another subprocess command to now actually change the MAC address. So subprocess dot call, and then again we run it, sudo if config, and then followed by interface, then hw, and then okay, and then followed by the MAC address. Okay, so sudo if config interface hweta, then followed by required MAC. So let me write it as required MAC. Okay, so actually the required MAC that we want to change it to. Okay, required MAC interface. Okay, so required MAC. Okay, so let me call it here required MAC. Okay, so how do I define it here? Required MAC. Okay, so let me just enter it here as MAC, so it MAC address, MAC. Okay, so that means that whenever we invoke this function, then we have to pass interface and MAC as argument. All right, then now after changing the MAC address, now we can reactivate the interface, and then so process.call. And then I can sudo if config, then followed by interface. Okay, interface, and then we are going to raise it up now. So basically this command will now change the MAC address. Okay, MAC address. Okay, so we can call this function also. So let me write if comment change MAC address. So we can invoke the function, and then can see change MAC. So and then we need to pass the interface and the MAC. Remember now that option variable contains the value of our interface and MAC, and we can call them by writing options dot interface and options dot required MAC. Okay, that is how we reference it in the function get argument required MAC. Okay, so required MAC. So now I can run this program and then see how if the going to give me any error. Okay, so let's print the MAC. Can we print the MAC? Change. Okay, so we are going to implement it in the next function. So now let's run this and see how if we didn't get any error, that means this script works successfully. Okay, so I need to enter my password. So our script has run successfully. That means that we don't have any error. So process change MAC command function is working smoothly. There's not any error in it. So in the next lecture, we are going to see how we can now check whether the MAC address has changed or it has not changed. So we are going to create a function that will now check to see that the MAC address has successfully been changed to what we want, to what we specify as the new MAC address.